Welcome back, episode 75 of the Ground Up podcast.
I see the only two active areas of the market is really small bitty yield buying plays, ground floor retail units. So I'm talking about 150k to 200k. That gap above that between like 500k and 3 million quid is just not moving.
Basically called everybody into the office in that department and effectively had to put them on notice. I was looking at everybody and they were in there like cast off polos and stuff. I was thinking, I feel like an absolute failure here. Absolute failure.
Yeah, but successful people are built up of many failures, aren't they?
If we can build a tunnel from London to France, I'm sure we can build this 2 up, 2 down timber frame house.
Let's say I'm going out the door and my car's parked a little bit down the road. If I can't get to the car in one trip, it bothers me deeply. Well, my wife always says I'm highly strung.
If you're strung, that means something different.
Big Nick, remember, from the last episode.
Ground up sound, ooh, yeah. Real estate deals. We lay them down, let's get those deals. Deals, deals making money, baby.
Welcome back, episode 75 of the Ground Up podcast. Welcome. If you don't know who we are 4 property developers based in the UK. We've got Dorian Payne, Jack Jiggins. We do sometimes have Stuart Wythe. He's been elusive today. It's his daughter's birthday, so he's celebrating a big birthday.
Probably gets one of them.
Yeah, he's getting one of those little father trophies. Well done. Well done, Stu. And myself, Ryan Beaumont, and we're 4 property developers. We chat shop every week around the mic, talking about business, property, scaling, finance, markets, politics, all sorts of stuff that hopefully is useful for our viewers. In this episode, we're going to be going through key decision making as a business owner and when to make the right and wrong decisions and how to seek advice on the right things, which is critical if you're trying to scale a company. So there should be some useful nuggets in there. Also going to be talking about HR systems. As you get to a certain size of staff base, you need to be able to track performance and all kinds of things like that. We talk about that. Also talking about scale in general, just scaling out. And I'm personally getting a new office. I'm trying to look at getting a new office in London. So guys, give me some feedback on that as well. So this is quite a business deep dive today. So stay tuned, enjoy, and subscribe if you can, please. Appreciate it. Turn on the bell notification and all that stuff. Jack, how's your week been, mate? Anything to report or update?
Anything to report? No, I feel like I've had a bit more time in the office. Do you feel like the year goes through a bit of phasing? And I feel like this is kind of a boiler pot of phasing of actually getting some work done. You know, you're not out and about in London for meetings for Christmas or out and about in summer, so I feel like there's a good period to get traction in business. I know some business entrepreneurs actually treat the year like seasons. So they go through summer, which is your big sales period, autumn, which is like counting your chickens, winter, which is like focusing on strategy. But yeah, I suppose this phase, I feel like we've been pushing and a lot of delivery and doing what we should be doing as we should be. So we're live on loads of sites. Feel like a proper developer because a lot of development is pushing paper around. So yeah, we're live on still live just about on 6 sites in XP Property. Should be 5 soon. We're selling units. It's quite nice that we're pretty much every week we've got exchanges or completions happening. It's a tough market. A lot of agents are saying that it's a really difficult market at the moment, but we're doing okay, to be fair.
Do you feel like it's been like that for years as well, though? I mean, the last time when it wasn't a difficult market was just after COVID, wasn't it? With the boom.
Yeah, it was quite pumpy during and after COVID. But yeah, it is. You know, I was getting my haircut yesterday with the barber that owns the barber shop, and he was just saying he sold his house. And he's just going to wait, see what happens because of like tax changes and you know, and I think that's kind of the sentiment of the market. Like, why rush into something if you can just, you know, see what's going to happen? I think Labour's still really unpredictable, and in an unpredictable government, the positivity doesn't side with activity. You'll just sort of see how you get on. I mean, we'll probably talk about it shortly when we talk about office space and taking on overheads, but yeah, it hasn't been that strong. I mean, the problem is obviously interest rates are coming down, and I think we've had 3 checks down now, but it hasn't improved activity. So then the only thing you can blame as finance costs is coming down is the confidence in the market. So yeah, and I think commercial and yield buying is completely fucked. I see the only 2 active areas of the market as really small bitty yield buying plays. Like we've sold 2 ground floor retail units really quickly at really good values in Oxfordshire. So I'm talking about 150k to 200k. So people want to buy in their pension, or people just want a bit of real estate to park money in. That's selling better than it probably was, because it's low ticket, predictable, 4 repairing leases, happy days. That gap above that between like 500k and 3 million quid is just not moving in commercial and yield buying, because people buying that stock typically raise leverage. Leverage is expensive at the moment. It's like 7.5%, 8%. You're not buying that on a yield. So really, you've got to buy double-digit yields to make that work and make it worthwhile. So it's just really stagnant and slow. Then obviously the bigger players way above that don't get out of bed for less than 15, 20 million acquisitions, they're still active because they've got to get money out the door. But they're less active because the people that are buying the sort of 1, 2 millions are stopped, and they can pile into that market and buy good yields for a little bit more fragmented process. Resi, I just think it's dry. I just think not a lot of people are moving, really. I think that it's just very inactive, so to speak. I actually love data, and Property Data, which is a platform, shout out to Property Data, is really data driven. And we basically do a lot of high level research on areas that we focus on. So we look at 3-year growth, yields, average rents, average pound per square foot, how many transactions happen a month. And we study that in all the areas that we operate. And it is clear that there's just less activity. And I kind of feel that everyone's just kind of waiting for change, but they can't really. We just need the market sentiment to be a little bit more happy to move it on. And I suppose the really kicker for us as a developer, because we develop in higher value areas in the south. So we've got schemes that in Marlow we've averaged probably 750 pounds a square foot. We can't just refinance those units, because it will end up losing money every month on the rent that we would incur. So we have to sell, but the market's shit. So we've actually done all right, and I think we've done all right because I'd put it more down to, there's an element of luck in there, but we've got really good buildings in prominent locations that we've priced well. And I think that when I say prominent locations, these are town centre areas where there's only houses available. There's not many flats. But if we were in London, where there's tons of flats, we would be pretty fucked, because you can't, if you can't exit sell a scheme and you can't refinance a scheme, what do you do? You're kind of out of options. But ours are in areas where there isn't really many flats available, so there's a lot of buyers that have been pent up in that.
And a rich local postcode as well, isn't it?
Yeah. And one really big hack that we've learned, which we learned on a 6-unit site, which is a good one to learn on because it's quite small for us, is put lifts in all of your flatted schemes, because then a downsizer, or someone buying to take the location and be I call them last time buyers. They can get a lift anywhere in the building and carry their shopping anywhere in the building, and they can buy a unit on your 3rd floor, and then your 3rd floor units become just as valuable as your ground floor masonettes, but they're actually slightly more attractive because they're not off curbside. And that has really helped us as well, because then people walk in and go, I don't really mind what floor I'm on. Whereas we found PD schemes in the wealthy areas that we do deliver. Investment buyers and first-time buyers will buy any of the units, but the last-time buyers who have the real big cash money, they probably moved out £1 million house, £2 million house, and now they need something that's more convenient, local. They can walk to the chemist, whatever it may be. They need a lift. So selling units, what else have we been up to? And then so yeah, 6 projects in XP, and then we've got 6 live sites in Central Suites delivering houses. We've got another one we're buying subject to planning, which has now got consent, so I need to get stuff in line to get that sorted. I was chatting to someone the other day, and they wanted like a synopsis of the development world, and I was like, it's tough. It's like every single thing is just, some things are getting progressively harder or more costly in time delays, and some things are aggressively getting harder and time delays. And I was like, I can't see where the like out is. I just think people are gonna do more plannings plays and flipping those on, or more HMOs or more investment stuff. And then obviously some of the big players have completely poor sites. So who's delivering? I think it's just becoming more and more difficult, and it's got to get so bad that there's a breaking point. But I can't see the breaking point. I can't see Labour really helping with planning and making life easier.
I think the good thing is it's universal, um, as in everyone feels the same pain. Whereas if for some reason it was particularly hitting the SMEs, or particularly hitting certain demographics or certain micro locations in the UK, then that competitive disadvantage or advantage, I think that could shake things up and make it quite volatile, which generally happens in other industries, doesn't it? When regulation is slow or policy decisions are slow for whatever reason. But I think in property, when planning's just shit or finance is just shit, because everyone's hit with it, I think it's more those who are more stable, and those who are more experienced, I think generally do well. And it's more the upstarts and the people trying to get into the sector that struggle more. Obviously, that's fairly generalized, but I think the ebbs and flows of property, it seems to be quite consistent. Like us guys have all stuck around, even though we've all dealt with absolute shit over the last few years.
By
But
a
I know quite a
thread.
few people who, by a thread, yeah, absolute tiny little skinny thread. But I know quite a few people who tried to get into the space, or really ambitious to try to get into the space, and they sort of fell away because I think it just looked too difficult.
And they underestimate the time, because that's like it's something happened recently for us actually in the business, where I last year I opened a M&E department, because obviously we do so much work, build hundreds of new build homes, and it's quite repetitive. And I thought it's something that, in terms of vertical integration, we could control the M&E, because it's now accounting for quite a material percentage of the overall cost, and they've got quite a decent gross margin in that business as well, as a just generally. But I thought, oh well, we could do that, and basically forecast that within a few years could get it basically to a £10 million subsidiary revenue. But obviously, it all comes down to people, and we didn't have really the best management team to start with, and then because of just other focuses elsewhere, we're scaling to a different region at the moment. I've been doing different finance and stuff. We're doing deals left, right, and center. We've got the civils subsidiary that's scaling. I was like, oh, do you know, I don't really have the capacity actually to kind of turn it around. So I just chose to do a controlled wind down on it for the period of time. And obviously that's very difficult. It doesn't affect the main company, but I basically called everybody into the office in that department, and effectively had to put them on notice, more notice than the legal requirement. And we've lined up with subcontractors to give them interviews. We've got my HR manager giving them one-to-ones. I've got obviously a recruitment business that can help them play. So we're doing lots of stuff to make it really like not even a soft landing, just literally a side, it's a step for them, not so they're not left at all. So it's really controlled. But even now, when I was in that room doing that, I was looking at everybody, and they're in there like cast off polos and stuff. I was thinking, I feel like an absolute failure here, absolute failure. And I don't know whether it's well, obviously I'm very ambitious, but that's the reason why I've stuck around. And believe me, I've had lots of chances to get out, is because I just don't want to be a failure. I think when
Well, I think it's there's a better saying than how I'm going to say it, but successful people are built up of many failures, aren't they? Which is
yeah, yeah.
that's just the sort of path of course.
Yeah, but you always read conflicting books, as you both know. I read a lot. I've read a lot of books and read a lot of books, and some of them is like, the successful people, they don't quit, they don't give in, they don't quit, And equally, on the other hand, is the successful people know when to quit. And you when you do a lot of studying with these books, you kind of realize that what for every book you read that tells you to do something, there's a book out there that tells you to do the opposite. And you basically end up in a gray area of which you never know which decision's right for you until you've made it and you've seen the outcome. And then everyone's like saying, "Well, that wasn't a very good decision, was it?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah, well done, Einstein." It's
I think I agree with that. There's definitely books and you hear podcasts and billionaires and people have completely opposing advice. But the best advice I think you could ever give to a particular business owner is just be good at critical thinking. Because if you're good at critical thinking and breaking down first principles and looking at things objectively and pragmatically, you should always be able to make good decisions. Should is a bit of
Well, I
a
think the most important thing about critical thinking like that is not necessarily making the best decision. It's making decisions that it kind of doesn't matter which way it falls because you'll get out of it. That's where critical thinking is important. I think because you are sometimes you do have two options on the table. Do you and kind of you can weigh up arguments for both of them, and as long as you follow the critical thinking pathway, and whichever decision you've come to, even if it hasn't worked out as expected, it shouldn't be a business ending decision. Does that make sense?
I think there's also I don't think that an entrepreneur sees a decision as black or white, because the I think that there's you make the decision malleable, like you say, Dorian, to basically. So for me, let's say a friend says, I'm in a really difficult position. I've got a really difficult decision to make. I've been offered a job, but I like my job. And I just think to myself, this is not difficult. This is the easiest decision you should have in your life, because you've got two options. Create the scenario where either works for you. So you either go back to your existing employer and go, I want 20% pay rise because I've got another option. And you go to them and say, I want all these things that my job isn't currently giving me. And then I'll move. Whatever that looks like. So you create the win-win scenario, if that makes sense. But I think that's down to the individual to look at the options and go, how do I create, manifest the best result in either case?
And I think an answer to that, Jack, as well, in terms of knowing, which is usually an entrepreneur's limitations are usually experience. So when critical thinking and trying to make those decisions, we spoke before about the Jeff Bezos methodology, where it's you got a one-way door and a two-way door. And I think all the two-way door decisions, critical thinking, get some advice if you need the advice, but really just move quickly, break things, fail fast, and adapt. The one-way doors is where critical thinking can help to a limit where your knowledge or your experience is limited. And that's where if you build a great soundboard around you or network is so important. The amount of times I've asked you boys, or I've asked our non-execs, or I've asked my dad, or I've asked people who've just got better knowledge than me in certain domains, and just get that feedback and get it all in, and then create a bit of a picture around something you otherwise don't know that well, and then make the decision. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs fail to do that. They think that they can make a decision off of limited knowledge or off what they think's intuitive, where sometimes in business the logical step isn't actually intuitive because you don't know the knowledge. Your knowledge base is limited, so an intuitive decision is actually just a naive decision. So get the experience to help drive decisions. And I think a lot of people make those mistakes, particularly in property, because you're playing with a lot of capital. So one quick decision could mean, oh shit, now I can't repay this, or now I can't refinance that, or I can't get this planning. And actually, if you spoke to a couple people that knew better than you, they'd have guided your decision making better. Speaking of which, network, we're doing a ground up live event on January 9th, 2026, and it's all about network. We want to get a load of people in a room, so that everyone can help on this exact thing here. This is probably the biggest impact you'll have on any business, for any developer, for any business owner, investor. The more people you know, the better the sum of your general knowledge. And on January 9th, 2026, we're hosting a ground up live event. You can get tickets in the link in the description. So hopefully see you there. Sorry guys, that was a segue I had to try and plug.
Interesting question. So Ryan's just said he thinks his biggest limitation on decisions is experience. What's yours, Dorian?
Decision making. Well, I tell you what my limitation is on decision making. And you kind of mentioned it earlier, Jack. For entrepreneurs, we don't see decisions black and white. I play chess against myself basically, and I'm the easiest person to sell my.
You are such a nerd, mate.
Well,
I fucking love it.
yeah, but like I try to play out scenarios, I try to play out decisions, and I do a lot of thinking myself first, and then I go out to my team and kind of seek their input. And my problem is, and this is something I've been working on, is because obviously you've got to advocate it, is when the consensus is against your idea. As the entrepreneur, again, business books tell you two different things. Successful entrepreneurs proceed with their vision, regardless of what people say. They listen to it and then choose not to act on it. And then another book tells you successful entrepreneurs leverage the experience and wisdom of their team and reverse their own decisions based on, kind of sound wisdom feedback. But the problem is, you just never know. So I suppose that my limitation on decision making is that I'm quite quick. If it's left to me, I'm too quick. Also been called reckless in the past. I disagree with that statement. I don't think I'm reckless. I just calculate very quickly in my brain. I have been told by other people that I'm very quick in terms of when it comes to I'm quick-minded. Like I get ideas very quickly. I get outcomes very quickly. I don't need to spend 2 hours in a room discussing things. I just need the key information, and my brain kind of connects it up very quickly. I think that's just over a decade of being a director and being constantly making decisions and learning from outcomes. But my limitation is trying to bring other people on the journey, and they are not as quick as me. They don't sometimes get it like I get it. They only see it from a small scale where I'm looking at the big picture. Do any of you get that challenge as well?
Yeah. I mean, I'm quite a lonely decision maker. I quite often
You're someone who would
sort of-
struggle with that, Jack, for sure. Yeah.
yeah, no, I do, but I often don't I mean, look, let's figure out what the big decisions we would have to make in our business, right? It's not really that far from the track of what we're doing. So let's say my main role in equity property is kind of like CEO, managing director, and acquisitions. Let's say I'm buying a site and I'm looking at a spreadsheet. I'm going, oh, does this site work? I'd rather just get the offer in, and if I need to consult someone else, it's to extract the information they have, but then I still make the decision. I almost often don't bring them into the decision. I say, what do you think on this section? And then they give me that view, and then I go and I gather. I'm quite happy being a lonely decision maker, and also I often say, and similar to what you said, Dorian, I often say in our office, I'd rather someone just make a decision and it be the wrong one and then amend it than not make a decision at all. I hate not having something to just move forward with.
Politics then, Jack. I think I said on the last podcast there, where you just enter into a room, 15 people there, 20 people there, tons of opinions, tons of chat, no decision at the
I think,
end.
but bear in mind, I think every business owner hates it, which is why there's no fucking business owners in politics.
Well,
That's the problem.
I don't think every business owner. I know business owners that are terrible at making decisions, and I can see it, and I'm like, fucking hell, how did
Well, I
that
think
take a week
maybe
to
we should.
decide
Do you know
that?
what I find?
Maybe we should think about the.
Sorry, right? It's funny. I've met some business owners that they've kind of like, I don't want to play down what they've done, but they have landed in the sector at the right time where like momentum of the market has turned them into a successful business. And I'm sometimes thinking, how the fuck are you successful?
We're talking about decision making, and it is interesting because it is, as a director, as owner of a company, decisions can be delegated, decisions can be yours, decisions can be one way, two way, they can be strategic based, they can be ops based. So I do think this is why no book can really help unless it really breaks down a framework of decision making. And ultimately, you get people like D who, if you build up enough general knowledge and you're very tactile with your business, you can genuinely make decisions with conviction, top down. You can make it from strategy right the way through to ops. When it comes to some ops decisions for me, I know I don't have the technical knowledge on construction. So I will look to the people who know better than me and go, what would you do in this scenario? And make the decision accordingly. If you fuck it up, it's fine. Let's just move back and let's do this. As long as I know it's a one way or two way decision, then fine. But if it's strategy, it's only me that's going to make that decision. And I'd much rather deliberate on it and get advice if I feel like I need the advice or maybe push the decision if I think we can be aggressive on it. If it's a sales-led decision, then we can do that. If it's an ops-led decision or a key hire decision, I'd rather seek the advice and
Ju-
think about it in the limit. You know,
The
there's
only thing,
different
the only thing I'd say about that is, and I agree with what you're saying, is that I've worked with a lot of competent people, employees, right? That they all know how to build better than I do, and they know their regs better than I do. I can't go toe to toe with them in terms of detailed technical knowledge. But what I can go toe to toe with them and try to get the best out of them from as well is I'm a serial challenger just by nature. As soon as somebody tells me they can't do something because of some type of reg or whatever, I've literally in front of the head of
Push
yeah,
against it.
all the time in front of a head of construction. I don't have the technical knowledge, but like Henry Ford said, I'm just one button away from getting the answer from an expert. I asked my like head of construction, where are we? Like, why? Where? And he's like, we can't do this because of this reason. I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense to me. I said, what? Yeah, sure you can. And I just throw things around like, look, if we can build a tunnel from London to France, I'm sure we can build this two up, two down timber frame house. And I've literally I said, right, tell me like why can't we do that? And they've given me some like reg. I said, right, okay, fine. On speaker on my phone, because this is what I did when I set the business up and it was just myself. Rang the building control advisor, put it on speaker. He tried to start a speaker. I said, no, let's just listen for the expert. The building control answers. I relayed the same question, and then they came back with advice, which was, no, you can do it a different way. This is the way you can do it. I said, right, great, thanks. Put down, do that way.
It's true, mate, and it's a director's job to do that kind of stuff, you know, that is and there's so many examples of that where it's like, "Well, just fucking speak to this person, just fucking do this," and go outside of the box that you may be in, and I think it's a challenge to train staff, particularly heads of departments, to
I think that's just so they say that there was a study carried out, I think it was Harvard or Stanford or something like that, which was the most common traits of a entrepreneur. So they did like an assessment of entrepreneurs, and it derives from either their parents were entrepreneurs, so they're born to challenge, they're born and they talk about challenging things, and the dinner table chats are about, well, why didn't you actually go completely in the opposite direction and go against that rather than become a doctor or a lawyer? Why didn't you actually just go and, you know, build that and sell that, or spend your time throwing yourself into something you enjoy or whatever it may be? That was option one. The second was that they had some form of learning difficulty. So like actually myself, parents are entrepreneurs, I'm dyslexic. So when everyone in the classroom can read a book comfortably, I'm thinking of other ideas of how I can do other things other than read. So that and what that enables you to do is build almost like a tolerance to failure very early on, so that you can learn to could be like, well, I'm not very good at that, but I can do this, and throw yourself into something else. And critical thinking, creativity, you know, most entrepreneurs, I think the stat is like 40% of entrepreneurs, that may be completely wrong, are dyslexic or have a learning difficulty of some capacity. And then the third is childhood trauma. So they've had to deal with things at a very early age, which has made them mature enough. And actually that I can relate that to my dad to some degree. He had a no, a shit dad who was an alcoholic. So he had to deal with that very young and be a father of a house at an extremely young age. And so like looking at those, it's like the change of track of the norm is typically what makes entrepreneurs entrepreneurs. And I've actually got a funny example of how if you like drop someone that's just different into I always see it as like the general public. Like I really struggle, and my wife laughs at me, if I'm like in public situations, I get really impatient. I'm like, what the fuck's going on here? Or why isn't the traffic moving that way? And I get so like like bored by very quickly. And a funny example is we're at the hospital the other day, and we were in this multi-story car park, and basically the ticket machine was broken. And this is just like me in normal life, like me out in the wild. I walked up to the machine. There's about 20 people there that have all done the exact same thing over and over again, tried the ticket machine, blah, 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 blah. And my like critical thinking was like fact find, like figure out what's going on and why. and basically, and then like come to a solution. And basically, what was happening is everyone was like actually able to pay for their parking, but it wasn't producing their ticket again. And I think, and I was just like, well, has anyone tried driving up to the barrier? And everyone was like, no, sorry, when someone sort of just said, oh, we don't know what to do. And there's 20 people, 20 brains in one situation. And I'm just there, just like, and I'm just like, and I started to walk away, and a woman was like, well, what are you going to do? Like, interested in my actions to resolve the problem. I said, I'm going to drive up to the barrier and see what happens. There's only one way to find out. And stood here chatting isn't getting any closer to that result. And anyway, did the ticket stuff, drove to the barrier. It opened up because it was on number plate registration. And then I still didn't know how long it would take those 20 people to realize that you have to do something else. But it was like she was almost like in complete shock that I was gonna get in my car and take a risk of driving up to a barrier to see if it opens, because I'm too impatient to try like form the crowd. And I think that's like kind of me, like that is me in every situation. I'm the person that if there's traffic stuck, I want to find out what the problem is to see if I can resolve the problem. And yeah, I think that the obviously the minority of business ownership is like constantly critical thinking.
No, Jack, we definitely share that trait. Like if I'm in a shop, even if I've got a few bits and there's a long queue, I'll just drop the stuff and just be like, no, I'm not doing it. I can't. Queues, traffic, things like that. It's just like blood boils almost instantly, and I don't like that happens. If I'm in a calm, if I'm in a calm mood, I could sort of deal with it. But if I need to get somewhere or something like that, it's a.
Would you do other people say you're highly strung?
I don't think so. No, I think I'm quite a calming presence. I think most of the time, unless shit needs to get done, and then I'll be pretty direct on stuff. But I try and be somewhat of a calming, happy presence, I would say. But what do you mean? In what context, highly strung?
Well, my wife always says I'm highly strung. Like
I'd say you could be highly strung, yeah.
yeah, like I get really aggravated with an inefficiency or like all the time. I'll like, let's say I'm going out the door and my car's parked a little bit down the road. If I can't get to the car in one trip, it bothers me deeply.
Yeah, and I can understand that. Like, I don't like time and efficiency. Like, that definitely is like a bugger. Like, I don't really like that stuff. But I try and keep it internal. Try and be a calming presence.
Well, slang down here, Jack. I mean, if you're strung, that means something different.
Hung, mate. No, hung. We
What
call that over here.
does that mean? You're hung?
Oh yeah, I may have got mixed up. Sorry.
Big dick, remember from the last episode. Interesting. Then we talked about decision making in business. What about in personal life? And you guys, being daddies, when making those kind of decisions, are they quick? Do you consult?
I am literally putting a car seat in a car right now, last minute. I mean, this is. I was asked to make. I had to make the decision: do I do it while I'm on a podcast? Then I've weighed up the consequence of not doing it, and that is quite high. And I thought, you know what, I can do it, so I'm gonna just get it done.
See, interestingly, I try and compartmentalize personal and business as much as I can, that I try and not do anything personal during work hours, because I'm highly strung in those time periods and I feel like everyone else is working in those hours. So I need to be really effective in those hours. Therefore, putting a car seat in a car will massively stress me out more than it needs to. But if I do it in the evening, I know that everyone else is asleep, watching TV, and that is a really good job to do in the evening. So I typically push a lot of business tasks that are just admin or playing around with floor plans or whatever it may be to the evenings, mornings, or weekends. But then my personal stuff, I try and not merge in. I'm really bad. Like Ben will often be like, "My dad's coming up today. I'm not going to work on a Friday," for an example. I can't do that. I will not see my parents in a week. I just refuse not to. I mean, if they walk by the office, I'll say hello and give them a hug, but I'll be straight back into work. Like I can't waste that valuable time in the week when there's so much that I could offer at the weekends and the evenings. So I wouldn't know what would happen if we didn't have a thing such as a weekend. I'd be terrible. I wouldn't socialize
I'm
at
with
all.
you there, Jack, because even though I've just done it now, I cannot stress how uh, angry it's made me. I know it
What
sounds
about
ridiculous, but honestly, I hate doing it.
what about
You sound highly hung.
you sound highly
Dorian.
hung right now, mate.
Yeah, yeah.
What about personal decisions though, boys? And I'll give you two examples. One having kids, and another one going on holidays, couple holidays. Like, how are you with making those decisions, or do you abdicate those to the other half?
Involved. It stresses me out if I get involved. All I say is that I only like going on holidays over long weekends if I need to. So I might be missing a Monday and Friday. Look, I know this is going to sound really sad, but I'm literally just like Jack. When between the days of Monday to Friday, I still do stuff on the weekends as well. But those are the days where just for some reason I'm feeling naturally anxious on edge if I'm not productive in like what's classed as when I know other people, especially my team, are working and I'm not, I feel like, oh my God, like, you know, they're carrying the boat, so to speak, and I'm not. You know what I mean? That's I know it sounds stupid, but so I like going for long weekends. Elizabeth knows that, my wife. Or if we have to, it's obviously in the half term for the kids. But if it's long, there's not one holiday that I'm on. I cannot go on holiday without my laptop, without my notebook, without my, you know, I just need to be. If I need to jump or pounce, I need to be ready.
Jack, what about you, mate? Holidays, babies, how do those decisions come about? Are they deliberated and thought about, or
Yeah, I mean, like Dorian. To give you a prime example, I go on a ski trip every year with four of us, four business owners, and they always just like look at a date as we'll go for 5 days or 6 days, and I'm looking at how many business days am I missing. That's the first thing that I'll look at. Not even thinking
Is
about the
this
skiing.
by the way?
Yeah, I look at the direct inconvenience of how many business days I'm missing and try and maximize on not missing as many business days essentially. So for let's say let's go Monday to Friday. I'll just say no, straight up no. If we're not benefiting from a Saturday and a Sunday of skiing, I would rather not go, because that to me is I'm just going to sit at home and try and catch up when I can't get hold of anyone. So I'm similar to Dorian in that capacity. I think that I longer trips. Obviously, we go to the US quite a lot. I don't go. You know, Kelly will go for months on end. She is actually going for like a month or two in Jan. I'll just go efficiently. So I think we're going out Christmassy time and then coming back early Jan. Well, I'm coming back early Jan. And although I will be there for like 10 days, that's kind of okay because I do manage to negotiate getting work done while I'm there. While every day I kind of get in a couple of hours or a few hours work, sometimes even longer, just to start the day right and get everything cleared up and make sure everyone's all okay and then move on. I wish I wasn't that way. I wish could just, you know, bugger off and relax, but it's never been the way for me.
What about you, Rob?
interesting? I mean, I've not made any babies that I know of yet, so I've not had to make any of those sort of decisions, but I imagine they will be well thought out decisions. Holidays, yeah, always will try and make the most of the weekend if we're doing that, but yeah, not great at booking in holidays, if I'm honest, because I kind of look at it and go, oh, I don't like planning a holiday months in advance, which is the best way to do it. I just don't like doing that.
Go away, like I like skiing, I like golf, as you guys have seen and have been involved in. I organize them as trips with other business people because now it feels like it's
Yes.
it feels very productive to me.
Productive, yeah.
You know, I know.
Yeah, no, I'm exactly the same. Yeah. Yeah, it's bad. It's bad, isn't it? It's bad. Try it's a holiday, but it's work.
Paddle trip.
It's work. Same thing. Yeah, man. Let's do it. Okay, all right. Let's pivot conversation then. There's a few places we could go. I actually asked some of you guys on WhatsApp recently because I've just built a HR system for us. I did it in a Sunday. So for anyone who's growing a staff base, Monday.com, you can build a really decent HR system. Like it's a good one. And I ran through it with the girls in the office as well, and they're like, "Oh, this is shit hot. This is going to help us with tracking reviews, with tracking leave, with tracking pay, and tracking all kinds of things." And I did it because I just felt like we're at a point where, yes, you can track leave on a calendar and things like that, but I really wanted to start tracking performance and training that's required and all kinds of other things, and just people's sentiment in the office, and just trying to get more tactile with how our staff base is really feeling in a data driven kind of way. Um, and it feels really good to have it because it's already made me identify and go, oh shit, right here, here, and here, we need work. Like we need to put some more impetus into this and that.
Do you know when you built that system, have you done it like a red, amber, green system?
So yeah, there's quite a few
Or like,
bits
is it
going
just
on in there.
dates that people need to kind of know if it's expired, or does it start as red? You know, I'm just taking that in construction, trainings, everything has they expire after, and then if it's about to go out, it's like kind of HR's functions flag. They need to go back on their first aid course in the next 3 months, or their SMSTS. Or if it goes red, obviously it's expired, so it's not valid anymore. Do you have the same?
So to be fair, I've not looked at tracking because the admin girls and Kane look after like the SMSTS and those sorts of things. When I was tracking training, it was more to do with looking at the performance with a few different metrics that I valued as like, very good at, average, underperforming, and things like that for different scenarios. And then just identifying that each month and getting department heads and getting around a table and going, okay, where can we look to work on things, and then setting an agenda for the next month to go, okay, let's do some work with this person, which is more like, let's get them in the office, and let's go through systems, let's go through their knowledge base and what they know, and try and help them learn more for general things, not necessarily qualifications on SMSTS and things like that. But I should put that in. Now you've said it, it makes sense that should also be something that's tracked in there. But the girls do generally sort that in the admin side. Well, what do you do, D?
I've been doing monthly reports for the whole business, where, as you probably remember, my each department basically has their objectives and KPIs and their reporting structure, and it's fed through, and every month it gets compiled into the kind of director's monthly report for the business. And recently I changed it to introduce a red, amber, green system across each department. And since I did that, the individuals who run an department, they're like, why is that red? I'm like, well, it's just it's just showing because the KPI's off. Yeah, but and then only from that they're like, oh yeah, but I don't believe that KPI is actually fully accurate because it was still doing good, or it's something along the lines of, oh, I didn't realize that we were fucking off. I'm like, you have the KPIs, you give them to me. And I'm like, but that's the clear difference there. I've witnessed it firsthand now, of having KPIs of data, but then actually having like a very quick grading system, like a red, amber, green system, and the difference that people react from it.
Well, I'll tell you what I've got in there in terms of red, amber, green, because yeah, I've got these, but I've got it for slightly different scenarios. So I've built out these different views so you can like kind of manage. It's almost like managing stuff like their projects in our project life cycle. And on the performance side, I've got the employment status, seniority, the role value, the role difficulty, and the role clarity. I.e., is it a mixed bag? Are they performing multiple functions, or is it a clearly defined role for them? Any concerns? It could be they want a pay rise. It could be they're a bit off, or it could be something going on at home. I've then got cultural fit, work ethic, job role fit, relative to aptitude and skills, output, and career growth. So know there might be like we've got one guy at the moment who needs to slow down a little bit, and another guy that we need to promote into a better position. And like so all of those are on a traffic light system, and it quickly helps give us a snapshot of how and they're grouped into each department. So, and that's pulled to a dashboard view, so we can at a snapshot see this department needs work, or this department might need this and that. Maybe I should bring in a consultant or get the non-exec to do some work with them, or we just need a team meeting or something. And I didn't have that before. Before it was very much like intuitively based, and now it's here. Me and the two girls who are kind of informally running HR, are like, oh shit, this is actually really useful to see. And so anyone out there who's building a team, I think yeah, at a certain size of team, you don't need to do it, but as the team gets bigger and bigger, you definitely need something to track performance, something to track all your review periods, your leaves, and remuneration, and concerns and all that kind of stuff. Because otherwise, you could just staff can kind of
Yeah,
sort
definitely.
of get
Yeah,
forgotten
definitely.
about in a way. If you know what I mean.
But just to
What about you,
answer
Jack?
the
What do you do
question quickly,
for?
were you
We have a third-party consultant that consults on more detailed legal legal things. Are you more referring to like the management?
Yeah, I'm more management, not necessarily legal or anything like that. No.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, obviously we have a CRM system, a project management system. We actually use Monday in Central Suites, and we use Asana and like XP surveys. Um, we obviously have team reviews, so we take people through 3 months, 6 months, 12 month, and then annually reviews, and we also do our own company reviews. But I wouldn't have said we have so much structure in it. We have quite a lot of autonomy and give quite a lot of our team trust in delivering what they're delivering. I would have said we're, compared to both of you guys, we're probably smaller, more qualified employees than larger with, a diverse range of specialist areas. We kind of leave it down to that. And we probably have quite an old school approach of, people check in when they need to check in. We obviously do our physical reviews, where people can try and speak openly. We also do soft reviews where we just take them out for lunch. We don't talk about work unless they want to bring it up, which I think is quite important for HR, because you sometimes get, someone leave and you don't really understand why. And if you did know why, then you could have probably resolved it, but they don't want to open up in their review because you're driving tasks that they need to improve on, rather than openly speak about how they're uncomfortable doing something. Or people management's a vast field of differences. Everyone needs managing differently. Often, the if there's a person that's a problem, that might be a management problem rather than the person that's a problem. So often there is a person that's a problem, and that's just got to be dealt with. But management, yeah, is super difficult. And it's actually really common in companies that someone like a project manager wants to go into management, but management is really different from project management. It's managing people rather than projects, and it's that our non-exec advisor always says that the best salesman can't really, you can't really suggest that they might be a really good manager, because if they're really good at sales, that doesn't necessarily mean replicate that they're really good at managing, and they just become a very average manager.
I think it's definitely true that there's a certain size of team. I don't know what that size is. Transparency, we're at 35 internal team members now. Plus we've got about 50 in the field, which is a mixture of day rate lads and price gangs who work with us continuously. And it's different for trades. You can manage trades in that's done kind of through ops from site manager back to office. But when it comes to staff in an office environment, admin through to department heads, accounts, all those kind of things, sometimes you miss a beat if you're not tracking it. When the team gets to a certain size, you can just like there's I was speaking to one of the lads in the office yesterday, and I was like, I've not spoke to him for like a month. I've just not spoke to him, and I was like, like I should be making sure I'm getting around and just seeing how people are getting on and checking in, having a chat, and then making sure that we're tracking the performance as well, for their benefit as well as ours. Because actually, when I spoke to him, he wanted a bit of help on something, and I was like, I should know this. As we keep building the team base, I feel like if you don't track that stuff, it's going to cost you money, or you could have staff leave who are otherwise really good in their position, but they just didn't feel like they're getting the support. I don't know what size of company you need to be at for that, but there's definitely a certain size where you just can't keep track of relationships in that way, and performance and output in that way, unless you've got a really good system that is tracking all that stuff.
I think that's probably over like 70, 80 employees.
a bit more as well? It's kind of where they say, and again, this is from Amazon, about that like that pizza-based teams where team sizes that can share kind of a pizza. They're the most efficient in terms of getting things moving, getting decisions made, and going forward. In terms of that's kind of a separate point. But in terms of business overall, yeah, at one point we were over 80 because of obviously the M&E personnel as well as the civils personnel, and there's just no way I couldn't speak to most of them on a frequent basis. That's where these layers of management come in from, basically, and those team kind of sizes. But this is where, like, when I set the business, when I first started the business, I didn't have a HR software. Brought on a HR consultant early days, as kind of like Jack said, and we still got them. But then we transitioned into an off-the-shelf HR specialist software because it's construction as well. There's just so much. Like we've obviously had a HSE investigation in the past. You typically always do the spot check. But the one thing they pulled us up on was occupational health tracking. So nothing to do with the actual safety on site. It was to do with the well-being of the personnel, not just on site, but in the office as well. So, we've got to make sure all of our office staff have done risk assessments for the equipment they're using. We've got to make sure that we have got medical questionnaires for them all. We've got to make sure all their data is on file. We've got to send some of our office staff, which we have done, for medical screening because it's our responsibility. Like at HR and then encompassing occupational safety, there's actually a tremendous amount that you need to do, and we just needed something to. In construction, you're more prone to being investigated on it, as a byproduct of them going to site. Whereas, like in a business like Jack's, for example, it'd be extremely rare and unlikely that HSC turn up to his office and say, even though they legally can, and say, Jack, show me your risk assessments for everyone using, those desks, those chairs, those computers. It just wouldn't happen. They're focused on the high risk stuff, but it's still a requirement.
All right, then teeing off this same sort of line of thinking, getting an office then as you're scaling a company, at what point? Obviously, this is going to vary depending on what industry you're in some way as well. At what point do you think you should commit to getting an office? And then, just for the context here, I'm thinking of getting a London office now for a sales and marketing department. And it's something I'm having to think about, obviously scaling a division down there. So slightly different to starting up, but these are questions and things that I'm going through at the moment. What do you think, guys?
Just to kick off, my first comment to you was, I feel an office space is obvious when it's obvious. I feel like if you're like, oh, shall I feel there's other ways to work up to that. So building a framework of a team that could meet a nice hotel in the lobby once a week to do a check-in, or 5 times a week, or whatever it may be. And then you might get to a point where you're like, look, we're spending so much on coffees and, hosting client meetings and doing this. And I actually think we'd now benefit from an office. That might take a week, or that might take 3 years. And I think for us, the office made sense when it made sense. If that, I know that sounds really fluffy, but it isn't. Like, you kind of, I now don't know how we'd work without an office, but when XP Property is the oldest company out of my company groups, so Central Suites, XP Property, XP Surveys. XP Property traded for probably 4 years without an office space. Not one at all. We were completely remote. We worked off site, met up at, hotels or whatever we need to do. And we lived on Zoom calls and spitballed ideas on Zoom. We're quite a young team, fast, and everyone was very good at independent learning and independent time management and independent task management. Then you bring in XP Surveys, where you've got surveyors that are drawing all day that do benefit from sitting next to each other and going, how do you do that on AutoCAD? And how do you change this? And how do you speed that up? What do you think about this drawing? How do you think I should concept this building? So there's a lot more what is called printer chat, where you don't know you're really doing it, but you do. So, and also when I'm running XP Property, I don't need to speak to my PM. Like, it's his decision to make that decision, whereas I'm focusing on acquisitions. And if I do need to speak to them, I'll speak to them when I speak to them. So now bringing XP Surveys, where you've got younger staff learning, there is tiers of management and learning. There's often quotes that might come in that need a little bit more discussion because we're turning a quote around for a client. Whereas tendering 3 different quotes as a development company, we don't need to talk about them. It's just one of them has got the scope that we need, and we might negotiate, and that's done, and it goes back out. So that was the kind of the turning point where we're like, right, let's get an office and just use it as in XP Property as well as XP Surveys, because XP Surveys needs it the most. And that was when it started to make sense, and it still does. I would say both of the offices that we have had in our group have just been a really good deal. Like, they've been really cheap. We're probably paying we are paying like 80 quid a desk a month. And it's so cost effective that it's kind of a no-brainer anyway. The value that we're getting back on that is really easy. If we paid full price in like a Regus or something, that might be a slightly different decision. But I think it makes sense when it makes sense. You know, we weren't ego driven. We weren't like, I need an office, so I feel important when I walk through the doors. We just feel like the business could actually run quite efficiently without an office space.
What about you, D?
So I'm a fan of working with people and getting them closer together as fast as possible and getting the best out of them. I think people work better when they're together. Obviously, sector dependent, obviously, but in a sales environment, I know I would thrive better around people because I'm quite competitive. I would want to, I'm just naturally like that. If I see people making calls, I'd want to make more calls than them. If I see they're kind of, I'm just not. Look, I think like the three of us are, we're naturally trying to get to the top of the leaderboard. It's just what we do. But and by myself, I'm prone to procrastinate or go on to other ideas. So that's important for me. But I also echo exactly what Jack said. I like to I would try to get to an office as soon as possible, but I would also do it on principles too. It's like I'm in a different area than London, obviously, but in Wales, everything's cheaper down here for that sort of stuff. But even so, my first office for Castell was free. I tried leveraging free offices first. That was through friends and stuff. I got onto the NatWest Accelerator program, so I would look at stuff like that first because you can sometimes get free office space. So I had free office space for like 6-9 months in grade A office space in centre of Cardiff, right outside the train station, for free because I got a place on the NatWest Accelerator program, and there's other stuff like that. There must be stuff like that running through London at the moment, and so I would start there, try to utilize those free things first, those incentives, and then after that, I moved our team into, because it was growing at that stage, into an office, into one of our development sites first. So again, no cost, and then only moved out when I basically had to, and then started paying for an office. So I actually went nearly 2 years without paying for an office and grew a team to the size of 10 before actually paying for an office. But I was actually in an office within months. Do you know what I mean? So
I shared the that story of James Khan, the Dragon's Den business owner, and he basically he took like a Pall Mall address, rented literally a store cupboard, so he had all his belongings, and it was literally like there was broomsticks and stuff in there, and he would never he would say that he wanted that postcode and that address to appear like he's running a really successful business, and every time he would call a meeting and someone would come to the lobby, he would come down and say, we're too busy up there, you know, the full team's working away, let's go grab a coffee around the corner. And it gave him that presence of an office space, but he actually wasn't using that office. So it was smoke and mirrors, but the principle
Cachet of a Pall Mall address, though, isn't it?
yeah,
It's
it's
not,
benefit of the perception of a successful office in a successful location, but not actually the use. And I love that because I feel that you know, really born like gritty entrepreneurs have those stories where they've, you know, molded a perception that makes, you know, it's like the Wolf of Wall Street where they're in a MOT
he used a fake
garage.
name as well, James Khan.
Sorry?
It was Alexander, was it James something? Alexander Man, wasn't it? And you were saying that his business card, James Khan himself, wasn't the actual owner. Alexander Man was. So when he was in negotiation decisions, they would have to refer back to Alexander Man. I think anyway. That's just from memory. I can't remember if that's correct.
You know, it's like the Wolf of Wall Street. They're in a MOT garage and they haven't got an office space. They haven't got a printer. They've just got a desk in the middle, and all they're doing is doing the dials. And then when they close the deal, they go, "I'll get my assistant to call you." And it's probably just them that then just do the work.
Well, I'll just give maybe a bit more context here then. It might be interesting for some people. So I've got a few different reasons for wanting to get into to get an office in London. One of the big ones is personal life. I don't want to live in the Northeast, so I want to have a base down there. Ops will stay up here. I'm not doing property down south. I want to keep doing that in the Northeast. It's brilliant for us, and I love the model. But I want to scale out the sales and marketing and the talent pools in London, the capitals in London. And I've already got 4 guys who I could get into an office now if we wanted to get into an office, and I'm about to hire someone else in marketing. But I want to do it in a way where initially we keep it remote, but meet up maybe once or twice a month. And then we'll just hire somewhere for 1 day or 2 days a month, and then you can get good serviced offices. It's about, I've worked it out, looking at all the comparisons, about £180 a square foot is what we would need to get something that's quite bougie between Covent Gardens to Liverpool Street and that sort of district. And the reason I think it's good is because with the sales team, you do need them together. You want that hive mind, and I want that feedback loop into marketing. And ultimately, that's how we raise capital. So to me, I'm like, raise all the capital, have a physical presence in London, the cachet of that with international investors who can come in and out as well. That's where the talent pool is, and ultimately raise capital to invest into the Northeast. And I feel like it's the right next move for the company to get it to serious scale.
Have a look at those free options though, Ryan, because I gave this advice to somebody recently, and they then came back to me and actually applied for this incubator with a university, and they actually got in. So they've got free office space at a university with others as well. So just have a look around.
For me, I'm like, I just want to keep it simple, stupid, because the office is not expensive, like relatively. It's like, I'm not too worried about the office cost.
I'd also recommend looking at members clubs. That you might be able to join quite a high-end members club that's got a spare meeting room or whatever. Obviously, there's also a talent pool of money there already that you're tap into. There might be facilities like gym or swimming pool or whatever, but then you can also use the conference areas, and you may find that for the ad hoc work immediately, the conference areas might actually work out a little bit more cost effective than, because obviously if you're renting an office and you need to be there every day and you need your own printer, that's different. Whereas if you just go and hive mind ideas and use that meeting room, you might be able to blag that for free while you've still got a membership. And
I mean, I've got an apartment there, so I could initially just host the meetings in the in the living room. But I want to keep it. I've got a 12-month plan to build out a 15-man team in London. That's the roadmap, and to do that, I just,
ladies,
men and ladies,
in between.
and everything else, if you like. And I think I would just keep it remote, keep it lean, and then just there'll be a point where I just go, right, office. Honestly, the overhead of the office for what we need, it will end up costing us about £8 grand a month. But it is trivial compared to what we can generate, and I'd just rather have that. I'd rather have that team all together. Because the output of that team, if they're even 2% difference in their performance, it will pay for the office like fucking 5 times over. I mean, we've managed to do a lot of damage with keeping it sort of remote, and they come up once a month and things like that. But to scale that team, you just can't hold those relationships in the same way remote when you've got 7 people reporting back and stuff. It's just have them in an office, have head of sales in there and stuff.
I think just to sort of help, hopefully, our listeners also with these decision-making things, we talked about decision-making and whether you do A or B. This is quite a difficult one because there's a lot of subjective value, which is always really difficult to predict. Because you don't know how much more investment you're going to raise in London as opposed to Darlington. But what I would always recommend is to build a simple cash flow, like a 3 or 5 year cash flow with that overhead ingrained into the business, and actually look and see if it's better to run a leaner outfit that's less ambitious, or whether you just go for it and go for the ambitious one with the overheads, because the returns are relative. And that's kind of like an example. We've got a house we're considering converting into a HMO or an Airbnb. And if you run a scenario of the model, obviously Airbnb should generate more revenue. But when I looked at the comparable data, I was like, it's not enough to make it worth the aggravation of running that type of product. And I think that's kind of what Brian's talking about here. So the more you can like run it, I base everything on like data and cash flow. If you can base decisions on information, data, and cash flow, then it makes it a lot easier to make a decision, because then it's not just like your gut or your opinion or what someone said. It's factual, and you can go. And even if you run that data and you're still none the wiser, at least you've run the data and pick something, and then it's off gut.
I've built always financially model everything before making, because what we're talking about here, it actually feeds into what we were talking about earlier. This is a strategy-led decision. And I've built a pretty good financial model as a back of fag paper, sort of workings out, because we've got really good data now on our sales performance and the cost base for that, CAC and everything else, and then just reverse engineered that against how many reps you could have and what they would likely output, be really conservative with the projections. And it all screams that London is like doing this idea. Maybe it doesn't have to be London, but lifestyle wise, I'd want to be in London. But another thing as well is, since making this decision about a week ago, I've spoke to 2 of our non-execs who've both built £100 million company in London and scaled a sales team. Another one of our unofficial non-execs who's a finance guy. Obviously my dad, my brother, Vicky, a couple other people, you guys. I'm trying to get as much feedback as I can to see, because it might be a bad decision, might not be. And it's one of those, it is a two-way door decision, because I could reverse it down if I needed to, but I'd rather get as much feedback as possible, fact find, and then make a decision like this. So again, it just feed back into what we were saying earlier. There's some decisions where it's just good to get everyone's insight and just see what everyone thinks, and obviously lay it out. And if it financially makes sense, then that's when you go, right, fuck it.
Who is my biggest resource, or who do I mostly collaborate with? So you're building like a team, and you could think, who do you mostly collaborate with or work with? And that might be someone in finance or whatever it may be. And the reason I use that example is because you could then actually double benefit from that move. So one of the guys that was on my Goldman Sachs course, he runs a digital marketing agency, essentially builds like, well, I don't actually know the correct output of his products, but his main client is FIFA, and he actually shares an office with FIFA. And you just look at that and you go, prime, like your main, 80% of his work, he works next door to them, and he's so ingrained in that there is an element of what's it called? Concentration risk. But he's taken that opportunity to work and operate next door to them to make his autonomy of work a lot easier. Obviously guarantees him the work a little bit more because he's kind of in the building. He doesn't pay for that office space. So it's double benefit that he's gone, right, if I have an office space, where would it be merged? So I think that's quite a smart move. So you can also consider that.
Interesting. Scaling. I love it. It's fucking fun. But we're at an hour and 8. And speaking of today, recording on a Friday, tonight we are going down to the venue that we've now booked in for the Ground Up Live event on the 9th. And we're going to go shoot a load of promo for it, get a VSL so everyone can understand what kind of event it's going to be. It's all about network, guys. Like, we cannot stress how important having a good network is. That is where that will be the defining factor in how successful you are in whatever you do. And we want to host events where that's the primary focus. Obviously, sharing a lot of value, running through case studies, talks, Q&As, things like that. But really, it's about getting good people in a room and sharing ideas and sharing contacts. So check the link in the description. And we should, by the time this comes out, hopefully have the promotional video ready so you can see what it's about. But it'll be good. It'll be a good gig. So yeah, check that out. Big love. Thanks. Subscribe, share the episode with anyone who you think may find it useful. And we're all going to Portugal tomorrow for a golf trip, which would be fun.
I'm so jealous. So jealous.
Jack's not, unfortunately. Tried his best, but he can't get the time out now. Daddy times,
Ground up sound. Ooh, yeah. Real estate deal. We lay them down. Let's get those deals.